Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Thursday, December 4th. Thank you for joining us this morning for our month of trust. Annette, I've been thinking about yesterday's episode. When we're talking about fear and love, we can't skip that it takes practice. When we're thinking about how can I trust? And putting that another way, how can I come from love even when the situation stimulates fear within me? To put it that way.
Stimulates fear within
No,
you.
I couldn't think of it another way. And that sounds so like maybe I should have like a pipe and I'm sitting in a row or something. Stimulates fear within me. The thing though, you are such a good example for me.
What do you mean by that?
You're someone that no matter what the situation is, you try to put a positive spin on it.
Which annoys the you-know-what out of you so often.
It does because I want to let fear get the best of me.
I never thought of it that way. I know that it is a practice. What you're saying is so true. It starts with understanding those two voices, though, right? Those two voices where we have that voice for fear inside, we have the voice for love inside. And it takes practice to allow the voice for love to be where we want to go, and then where we go, and then we might stumble, like I was sharing the other day where I did go to the voice for love, and then I allowed that voice for fear to come in and just take over. So thank you for reminding us that this is a practice. All of this is a practice.
It's a practice and it takes intention.
It does take intention. And that's why I really appreciate our listeners, because this isn't a podcast for people that want something light and fluffy. I remember we were talking with someone earlier this spring, and they had started listening to the podcast, and then they said to us, whoa, that's heavy stuff. And I could have allowed the voice for fear, and you could have allowed the voice for fear to take over and say, oh, well, I guess we should start talking about the light things now. But that's not the type of podcast I enjoy listening to or that I want to produce. Because we're not saying you have to think exactly like we think. What we're trying to do is to share concepts, to talk about different issues and things that we've learned in our life, and for you to make it your own. But many times we can go through life and we don't even think about any of this. And then we wonder why our relationships aren't working. We wonder why we don't have self-confidence. We wonder why. Well, it's because we haven't been intentional with our lives. We need to be intentional with our lives. And that's what this podcast is about. So thank you for reminding us that this is a practice. It's going to take a while. It takes intentionality. And if we can even start practicing what we just talked about just this week, what does the voice for fear sound like in my mind? What does the voice for love sound like in my mind? And start getting clear about the two voices because they're both there. And then bring it further, like what we talked about yesterday, is we can have feelings, whether we're coming from fear or love. Feelings coming from love will bring vulnerability and open our hearts. Feelings coming from fear will close us down and keep us stuck. And in some cases, we'll want to attack back. If we feel like we've been attacked and we feel hurt, we'll want to attack back. That's a fear-based thought. That's a fear-based place to come from. Now, today, I know, Ada, we wanted to talk about the second issue that we hear about when we're talking about fear and love. And that's, what do you do if you're trying to trust and there's all this uncertainty in life? How do you handle that?
That's why I brought up the need to practice and be intentional. This isn't something that you just one day just say, okay, I'm going to trust. If you can do that, I've never seen anybody just go from 0 to 100 and say, I'm going to trust every moment of my life. For the rest of us, mere mortals, we have to practice.
And practice.
And practice and practice. And that practice is key. When we're first in a situation, fear's probably going to get the best of us if it's a situation we've never been in before.
Or if we're used to living in fear.
Exactly. If we've never been in a situation or we're used to living in fear, fear is going to be that first voice that pops into our heads. And practice comes in because we have to train ourselves to pause and stop and recognize the voice for fear for what it is and choose again and choose love. This takes practice because that fear-based voice is going to be the loudest, it's going to be the quickest, it's going to want to, as Annette said, attack back, it's going to want to punish. But we have to say no. We have to follow hearts of love and choose differently. The thing that I've noticed is that it's so much easier for me to choose love and to come from love and to be motivated by love when I know in my heart I'm going to be okay. That I'll be fine as long as I'm still breathing, I'll still be able to move forward and I'll figure it out. When I can have that belief held in my heart, it's so much easier for me to come from love. But when I start worrying about my finances, when I start worrying about my physical safety and what's going to happen in the future, that's when I start freaking out. And it's a lot harder for me to get to love, or I just get stuck in this fear spiral for a while, and then I can figure my way out of it. But when I can just start with, I will be okay. I will figure this out. Even if the worst thing can happen, I will make it through. As long as I'm breathing, I can put one foot in front of the other.
Well, an antidote to the uncertainty, because we're all going to feel uncertain.
Of course we are.
And we might go into fear. But one of the antidotes that is helpful, it's like building your trust muscles, is to think about times when there was a lot of uncertainty and you didn't know what was going to happen, how things were going to end up. And if they ended up in a way where you learned something, you got to a place of connection with somebody else, or in the end, you felt that peace, because opening our hearts leads to peace when we're coming from that loving space. Even if we open our hearts to someone and they hurt us, during the times when we're feeling very hurt, it's not going to feel this way, but it does feel very good to know I did the best I could. I opened up my heart. And so even we're not made of stone, we might feel hurt, but when we're feeling hurt and we're coming from the loving space, and it's 5 years later, 10 years later, and we can say to ourselves, I do feel such peace because I know that I was coming from love. During those times of uncertainty, if we can think of times when I came from love, I didn't know it was going to happen, could have been painful for a while, but it ended up where I do have peace, or I do have connection with myself. Building our trust muscles by recognizing the times when we had uncertainty and it ended up and we did find ourselves in this loving space at the end, that builds our trust muscles. And then the not knowing can become part of your peace.
Let's build off of that. Today's intention is a curiosity question. Can I allow not knowing to be part of my peace? Can I allow not knowing, that uncertainty, to be part of my peace? Thank you so much for joining us today and every day. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.